All right, we are moving forward with our member spotlight series. Jen Coito here, having the pleasure of interviewing Justin Pohlig. Justin's a member out of Philly and has some really nice things to say about our program, which we're so grateful for. We were just talking a little bit off camera about kind of why you joined in the first place, what appealed to you. So if you would kind of share that, I think that's good information.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I'm veteran of the industry. I've been in the industry about a decade, and I was always kind of on the other side of the table. Advisors were always my clients. So that after I was working for an ETF company up in New York, and when I moved back home, I started building my practice. And you realize outside of friends and family, it's hard to sort of cast a wide net without without having done this before, where I was very confident once I found people who were interested in bettering themselves financially. That part is easy to me, to explaining the benefits of investments and planning and protection and things like that. But it was getting in front of folks that you had never met before and sort of casting and then kind of building a practice based upon your own merit and word of mouth getting out there outside of family and friends. So, it was approached via LinkedIn by somebody from AFE, and they were explaining the program as just, kind of unbiased, practical financial advice for, federal 50, a nonprofit 50C13 organization that'll just go out and finds organizations that want this sort of conflict-free information and education. And we need local people involved in financial services to actually execute on that. And I just thought, I'm like, well, I'm passionate about that. The last 15 years or so, I think the investment world costs have come down, investment minimums, it's gotten democratized in a lot of ways. And I really like being the person out there espousing those views and those values. And then, also kind of happening in tandem, you are marketing yourself. And it's not a salesy program or what it's trying to execute on. And honestly, I think in this day and age, nobody wants to be sold to, right? So it absolutely clicked from a values perspective for me. I jumped right in, and like I said, working with people from AFE has kind of made it all the better.
Oh, that makes me so happy. I have a question, because one of my earlier interviews, he went out of his way to talk about how he was kind of, I don't know if you had a chance to watch those, but he was kind of blowing it at the beginning with AFE, because he was walking in talking about, here's my broker dealer and here's what I do. And we, my team that you said such nice things about said, let's get you some AFE business cards. Remember, when we're going out marketing you, we're saying you are this community steward. You are this volunteer expert. You are not going in there to sell anything. And when you show up under this umbrella of your firm or whatever it is, trying to look like, the big expert, the people that we've been in contact with are going, wait, I thought you were sending one of your volunteer members, and they get all confused. So do you use AFE business cards?
I do not.
You do not. Well, we're going to get you some of those.
I wouldn't mind that. It's really, you have to go in with, you're just trying to help people, and then people are going to know what you do. You just let people know what you do, the kind of work your team does, and how you help folks, and how you like to educate people to, number one, help themselves. And then, perhaps they look to work with somebody like myself, is sort of maybe the premium product, but you want to arm people with the education to get started first. Quite frankly, hiring an advisor, it isn't, I'm not Fidelity or Vanguard. You really are choosing to work with somebody like me and my team. So, if they haven't even started saving or investing, they probably can't even meet the minimums for me to just barely even get started and get them. And so you want to arm people and have, just have maybe an army's kind of, but like, great numbers of people out there bettering themselves. And hey, if they get to the point where they think I need professional help, they're going to think, yeah, well, hey, Justin, he came and he taught me about this in the first place. Or say they have a friend or a family member who, hits financial hardships, or the opposite, maybe gets a windfall from an inheritance. And what are they thinking? Well, no pressure, Justin, who educated me, and whoever the local AFE rep may be. And that was just a very attractive thing from a marketing perspective. It just seems so very passive. It's just you sort of espouse these values and let people know what's possible. And that's kind of how, so it's never kind of my broker dealer first. It's never, oh, well, this is the name of my team. This is what we do. This is how much money we manage. Sometimes that comes up, but it's never about trying to sell somebody. It's sort of about arming people with the knowledge.
Right. And that is, I mean, that is the refrain that all of our successful members say that. I hope that everyone who ever even considers AFE watches these videos, because I can say that all day long, that, my successful members do not go in with that sales hat on. They just don't. They go in and there seems to be a whole lot of, well, if I'm not selling, what's the ROI? I'm not paying to not make money. And, you've been with us for a year, and something we talked about on camera is something, off camera is something that I'm really careful to point out when I'm talking to prospective members. It's not quick leads. You are going to have to work some of these companies. Not every group you meet with is going to say, this sounds great. Let's schedule one tomorrow and we'll do one in another month. So my question to you would be, like, do you have a sort of like a drip marketing plan or program? Do you have a way that you kind of keep on these companies that may not move forward from day one? Do you have a process for that?
Yeah. So in a kind of a previous career, I was working for various fund companies, and I was either, very directly a salesperson, selling to advisors and RAs and sometimes institutions. Or I was a consultant on the sort of broader, the investment side of things for advisors. So I do have a very organized follow-up process. I would hammer home that that's important, that you need to have an eye for the long term. For example, I'm still working one of the second or third company I was ever paired with, seemed very excited. She walked and she was, initially very hesitant, like, well, what's in this for you? And I kind of explained to him, like, listen, like I've worked in construction for so many years. I'm doing Habitat for Humanity for so many years. I now realize this is probably a higher leverage way for me to give back. And then just and explain to them, like, this is something that I'm passionate about, and this helps me get the word out. So you need to, so once you've gotten to that point, she kind of, turned around a bit, I would say. We keep looking to schedule, but COVID happens. They much prefer that we do it face to face. And I am trying to educate them to say, hey, in the face of the new normal, you probably need to look to do these virtually, but that's not really what they're looking to. But we've rescheduled 4 or 5 times. I still have not gotten beyond the first meeting, but that's fine. I know in my heart of hearts that there's going to be a time and a place for me to come in and educate their employees. And they're a nonprofit who are a lot of those, the organizations I get paired with are nonprofits themselves. So you're almost doing doing a favor to those who are helping others, and you can't kind of have it, see client, get client. That's really not what this is about. So it is a consistent, low pressure, not very salesy follow-up is really the key. And you can't let these fall by the wayside. I mean, you can, but you're not going to get anywhere from building your practice perspective. So it really is about organization, and that's not, I think people tend to respect it when if they say give you 3 months, give them 3 months in a week, and then send them a quick email, give them a quick call, voicemail, and people are receptive to it. And you really can't, it can't be so point A to point B. It is kind of a journey in figuring out who you're actually marketing to and who you're helping and things like that.
Right. Yeah, that is kind of what I want everyone to understand too. That's one of the reasons that, we toe a fine line at AFE, because our whole monthly piece is it's optional in the first place. You don't even have to do it. You can join just for the branding and the logos and the materials and do your own marketing. Or we're very clear that it's very flexible. You can turn it on and off. But within that, it's really important for members to do what you're doing, is to just give it a little time to build momentum, because that way, if your very first meeting could be the one that isn't ready to move forward because of COVID, or because we plan in March, or whatever it is, and that's okay. You can drip on them. You can get them on your newsletter list. You can, kind of work that relationship. But if you do that whole one and done, you're probably going to be disappointed. And it doesn't give my team the opportunity to, go out there and be educating on our program and what we can bring to the table. So thank you for saying that. Is there anything that, like one of my other members said, he was doing all these things wrong, or anything that you learned through doing AFE? I know I'm putting you on the spot because we didn't talk about
no
that.
problem. Yeah, I guess there was maybe some hesitation where I just thought every company that I would be paired with was kind of asking for these sort of things as far as the educational workshops are concerned. When you realize that, that the folks at AFE were just sort of trying to get the word out. They kind of got their foot in the door for me, but you have to realize that you don't have to, sell's the wrong word, but you have to highlight the value that this financial education brings, like just to their employees, and then it will actually, in all likelihood, help their bottom line if their employees aren't particularly financial savvy or investment savvy. That hey, this will probably reduce financial stress, which is like a top 2 or 3 stressor in the average person's life. It's like it's kind of like right up there with a death or I mean, statistically speaking, of moving homes and things like that.
Yeah.
It is like that. So it will pay dividends. So you have to kind of go in there, let them know, hey, this is not a sales conversation. This is what's possible. This is where I think you guys as an organization or an employer are going to get a benefit on the back end. And then I'm more than happy to kind of help be the fulcrum point for that. And if not, it's quite all right. This organization will be there when the time and place is ready. And that was something that I thought every person every organization would be
ready to go.
Would be chomping at the bit. Like, you know what? Hey, we have open enrollment in a couple of months. I want you to get in here. I want you to teach them about not leaving any benefits on the table or the company match, if it's a 403B or a 401, what have you, where it's a little bit, maybe it's a longer sales cycle, I guess, if you want to think of it like that. But yeah, just like you said, had patience is pretty important, where I just thought it was going to be, hey, within a few months, I'll be in front of a number of employees and I'll probably be back for open enrollment, and I might be back next year, where it's not everything's a fit. And you kind of have to be cognizant of that. Each organization probably has so much going on that you don't even know anything about.
Right.
And when they have the time and energy to organize this or get the word out to their employees. So, but it's been pretty fruitful when you approach it that way. And that was something I didn't get right from the jump.
That's good to know, and we will work on that messaging. The analogy I use on the phone all day, every day, I'm in my open air office and my kids are homeschooling, and I'm sure they're so sick of hearing this, but the analogy that I use is, I like members to think of us as we're sort of like a dating service, right? So Justin, you've come to me and you said, I am tired of Match.com. I'm tired of meeting people that don't look like their profile picture. I'm tired of spending all night in a bar to find out somebody's already taken. I'm going to go out and I'm going to find you only potential dates who are interested and available, but they're not booking the chapel yet. They're not ready. They're not like out buying the dress and planning the reception. They're like, I want to meet this guy. I want to meet this guy and see if he's as great as you say he is. I want to see if, when we're over here, AFE is saying, Justin is coming in. He's a member of our nonprofit. He's an educational speaker. If Justin goes on that date and goes, hey, I can sell you a 401k plan, they're like, whoa, wait, what? So what I say to my potential members all day long is, I'm going to set you up on a date. Don't blow it. You can still blow it. You could show up late to that date. You could show up smelly to that date. You could be rude or disrespectful on that date. Do the right thing on that date. If that date says to you, I don't know, I kind of just got out of a relationship and I'm a little gun shy right now. You know what? I'll call you in a month. Like you're gonna have to work that date a little bit if you're trying to get to the altar. We're gonna tee you up. We're gonna do everything we can. But yeah, you still have to button it up. You have to be everything we've said you were, which is not a salesperson, knowledgeable, passionate. And frankly, not everyone is going to be great at that meeting. Right? They're not all going to be charismatic and passionate, even if they aren't salesy and aren't, they're doing everything that we've asked them to do, which is why, we're very clear to say we cannot promise you that every company you meet with will move forward, because I can send 10 different advisors into that meeting and get 10 different outcomes, right? So it is, at the end of the day, it kind of is up to you to get that dinner date that's going to get the Alaskan cruise, that's going to get the wedding. That's just the bottom
Yeah.
line.
And one thing I've noticed, and I guess it just makes perfect sense. I don't know if AFE is going about this on purpose, or I guess, with the intention of it. But like I said, that I do get paired with a lot of nonprofits, and what you tend to notice is that people in charge of various nonprofits, from the benefits or even, kind of senior management, almost at the board level, they're very intent on that this program will do good, like they're doing good.
Yeah.
And they're rather engaged. They tend to want to at least attend the first workshop alongside the rest of their employees, and that sort of exposure, it doesn't go unnoticed.
Yeah.
Or when you do good work, it doesn't go unnoticed by the higher ups, and quite frankly, they can be your best advocates as well. So just something, sort of an aside, that I noticed. Hey, I end up working with a decent amount. As far as the overall pie is concerned, it's a decent chunk are nonprofits, and they're a little bit more engaged maybe than the private organizations, at least to make sure that this is useful for their employees.
Sure. I had not heard that, but I have heard you mentioned something that I've included in some of my best practices materials that I put together, is get your point of contact engaged. Have that, make sure that person knows they're invited to your workshop or webinar, because exactly what you said, they will be your best advocate. Like, oh, I could actually see most of the letters that we've gotten, and we've gotten dozens from the groups that our members educate, are always like, I was sitting in that workshop and I could see the employees being really engaged, and they definitely notice that. So you want that person on your side.
Yeah. And actually, I think there's, like I said, they will be your biggest advocates. And, when they see it, like I said, it does tend to happen more in the nonprofit space. But I mean, you also find, private corporations that just have senior management that really do care about kind of the greater good of spreading this, spreading this education or helping their clients. And that's really where I think, honestly, the biggest value comes from, because business owners talk to other business owners. People who run nonprofits are almost without exception involved in networks of other nonprofits, and they share best practices. And you can really just see if you can sort of let these workshops and the work that you're doing as a local member, a local representative of AFE, you can just see how it'll likely spiral out, over the years. I'm not at that point yet. But I honestly, I saw that right from the jump, that potential, and I think I'm building towards that. So, we'll see where it goes. But like I said, I'm very, very excited, and it just kind of fits with what, part of what I was looking to do from a marketing perspective. And quite frankly, I was at a loss for how to get this sort of exposure. And, AFE just reached out to me and told me exactly what I was looking for existed. And we want your help.
Well, you have all the right stuff to make it. So I have no doubt that you will be successful with AFE. And obviously, we are grateful for your membership and for the work that you're doing in the community to help us spread our message. And that's all I can say. I'm gonna get you some business cards.
Well, I'm much appreciated. Yeah, like I said, even anything you can just take a step back from what you do. Like yes, I am part of a private wealth practice. Yes, if you would like to know more about my credentials in the industry, yes, I've worked for so many different fund companies. I've worked with advisors. Here's the letters behind my name. Here's the letters behind the older guys on my teams. Yeah, that's fine. That's all good. But that almost gets to, I'm pitching somebody.
Right.
That's really what's up front. But if it comes up naturally, yes, then it's like, oh, well, then not only is this person trying to help me, he or she is part of a very reputable organization that does this.
Right. That's what I say to my members. Look, you're Justin Pohlig, not from the hot dog stand, right? Because why are you here talking to me about my retirement? I mean, you're allowed to credential yourself or affiliate yourself that way, but, make that secondary. The primary is you are there as the steward.
And I will say that, this was not, when I first connected with somebody from AFE, about potentially becoming a local member, local representative, they were completely upfront and honest about it. Like, you're not going for the top 1%. Don't expect there even to be, many people in retirement where, where they have assets outside of them. Like, okay, now that makes sense. I appreciate you not kind of trying to just, sell me a bill of goods. Like this,
Yep.
part of almost all of this is nobody wants to be sold.
No.
And that this information should be out there, and people can get started, and finance and investing has totally been democratized over the last 15 years. And the idea of a broker being the only way to save for retirement is just so passe at this point. And I think programs like AFE and just that shift in mindset it's a wonderful thing. And it's, as somebody who's inherently just kind of distrustful of financial services, I came into the industry, I'm like, I don't trust. I guess I graduated graduated high school in 06. So right into the global financial crisis. And then, it was just the first gig I could get happened to be in financial services, but I wouldn't trust somebody in finance further than I can throw them. And honestly, I think when you poke fun at stuff like that, right off the bat in these workshops, people tend to trust you, and they tend to kind of identify with that thought process. But then when you let them know, hey, here's how things have changed, and here's what's available to you. And by the way, it'll cost you nearly nothing, and there are minimums, and you can get started investing, or even just protecting your family, things like that. It's just all it gets people excited, and maybe folks who probably wouldn't have thought about making these changes for them and their family until much closer to retirement, when and oftentimes it's too late.
Yeah.
So that's that it kind of I think it kind of pulls these considerations for the average person who may not have all the financial know-how. It pulls it up a number of years, much like maybe technological disrupted was pulled a bit forward by COVID here by a number of years.
Right. We wouldn't have been doing this probably. Right?
I wouldn't imagine. Like I said, I still have one or two pairings that are still holding up. Like, we'll do this face to face. I would much prefer you do it face to face, but we're now kind of having my second and third rounds of with a single nonprofit here in the Philadelphia area that just really starting to love the employees just as people. I mean, a couple of them, yes, have come up, and we're talking about potentially working together, but it's it's almost like you're fostering these relationships, and now they know exactly who Justin is and what he's going to be, what's expected. And of course, you can interrupt him with questions and things like that. And I think that's really when it's not just a talking PowerPoint. I think that's
right.
when you can really see the rubber meeting the road, and then AFE kind of it's goal coming to fruition.
Well, you said the magic word, which is trust, right? And if you go back to my coffee date analogy, I don't trust you on the first date. You can sit across from me and say, I'm the nicest guy you're ever going to meet. How am I going to know that? Through time, right? I mean, trust takes time. It just does. This is a true story. On my third date with my now husband of 20 something years, he wanted to take me to this really romantic place in the woods. And the whole way there, I'm texting my friends, going into the woods, might die. Like, I might die. I might.
Okay.
Like, what? I don't even know what I was thinking. Why did I let this? He's a stranger. Like, and I have two teenage daughters.
You don't hear from me in 2 hours in a search party.
Yeah, if you don't hear from me, I'm on this highway. I've never been here before. I'm definitely going to my death. And why? Because I didn't trust him. I didn't. Now he could blindfold me and drive me into the forest. I'd be pretty confident he wasn't going to murder me, but I was getting murdered that night.
Absolutely. And honestly, that's part of my initial, just my nature, and a little bit of a distrust of financial services for maybe, some bad apples over the last few decades, and just maybe the system itself having some problems that I think are getting worked out in a very meaningful manner.
Right. But acknowledging that helps with that trust piece, right?
Absolutely. Nobody wants to pretend everything's perfect. You have to, if we're going to make real progress forward, we're going to need to acknowledge shortcomings. I think the same thing with social change,
Yep.
So there's a lot of parallels to be drawn here in kind of real world scenarios. And I think it just kind of adds credence to that's what's working, essentially.
Yep. Well, you are a treasure. We are so lucky to have you at AFE. I really do appreciate your time today. And I'm going to end this recording, and I'll talk to you for one quick sec after, but thank you again.
Oh, thanks so much. Now excited.
I can do this.